Right, firstly, my apologies if the sound on this video is pretty awful. I've been sitting here faffing about on the microphone for ages, and yeah, I've kind of given up my patience really. But I want to talk about something that's actually quite important when it comes to getting into gambling recovery. Look, as addicts, we tend to berate ourselves an awful lot, particularly if we've just had a gambling session and we've lost and we've done it again and we've lapsed and we've relapsed, and we tend to sort of spend awful lot of time berating ourselves. We'll lie awake at night calling ourselves stupid, calling ourselves idiots. I know, because I've been there, I've done that multitude of times, right? We are very, very unkind to ourselves. And you know what? Maybe this forms part of our recovery. Maybe this is something that we do that actually ultimately leads us to deciding that we want better for ourselves, and that we're going to put the steps in place to build a recovery, to actually start to put blocks in place to improve our lives. And that's brilliant. But there is a flip side to this. There is a flip side to this, and this is what I want to talk about today. Before I talk about that, what I want to do, as always, is say I hope you're keeping safe. I hope you're keeping sane. Welcome back if you've watched my other videos. If you haven't watched my other videos, then please do hit subscribe if you find these videos useful. My name's Phil. I'm a recovering gambling addict, and that's what I talk about. I talk about gambling addiction. I talk about other addictions. I talk about other things that I think can make our lives that little bit better. So when you get into the early stages of gambling recovery, you have to be on your guard. You're there, and the vast majority of your headspace is taken up with methods by which to stop ourselves from giving into our addictions. Unfortunately, as depressing as it is, you do have to commit an awful lot of your headspace in the early stages of recovery to not doing the thing that your subconscious, the thing that the gambling demons want you to do. I've always said that the simplest thing in the world is to stop gambling. It couldn't be simpler, is it? It's just something you don't do, and not doing something is as simple as it comes, but it doesn't mean it's easy, and it does take an awful lot of headspace to plan, and it takes a lot of headspace to put blocks in place. It takes a lot of headspace to put the methods in place by which to avoid the inclinations we have to indulge in this addiction. However, after a certain period of time, that subsides, and there are ways in which we can make ourselves, almost formidable to this addiction long term. But after a certain period of time, then the urges will start to die down. They'll always be there, and that's why we keep the blocks in place. But they'll always be there, but they will stop occupying so much of your headspace. And eventually, after a certain period of time, and this will be different for different people, it might be days, it might be weeks, it might be months, it might be years, all right? But after a certain period of time, there will become a moment where you suddenly actually start to feel, in a sense, like people who don't suffer from this horrendous, insidious addiction feel. All right? There'll be a moment where you might be walking down the street, you might be sat at home, you might be watching the telly, you might be sat with a partner, whatever it is. All right, there will be a moment where you have this moment of tranquility, serenity, peace, calm. All right, and actually, what you might find is you might find a smile starts to spread across your face. Okay, now this isn't to say that all your problems are over. It's not to say that your life is amazing. It's not to say that you've paid off all your gambling debts. It's not to say that you're out of the woods. All right, but at some point there will be a place where you feel that actually things, you know what, they're not too bad. I've got a job. It doesn't have to be the best job in the world, but you've got a job and you're getting paid and you're not spending all your money gambling, and you have a partner, or you don't have a partner but you have family, or you have a friend or multiple friends, or whatever it is. Maybe you started a new hobby. But these things in your head will combine to form a place where something, doesn't matter what it is, but a combination of factors will make you smile, it will make you happy, and you'll suddenly, for a moment sometimes, it can only literally be momentary. It could be for seconds, it could be for minutes, it could be hours, right? But you will feel happy, you will feel content, you will feel like life actually is worth living. Now, my advice from someone who gets these feelings occasionally, okay? I spent the vast majority of my adult life beating myself down. I've spent the vast majority of my adult life dealing with addiction and self-berating and hating myself and hating what I've become and the things I've done to myself, my relationships, my family, my finances, all the rest of it. All right, but every now and then, and they become more frequent, I will have this moment of serenity, this moment of calm, where actually I almost feel like a smile is going to spread across my face. And initially I was really kind of defensive against it. I was almost like, how, Phil? How can you be happy? How can you be smiling? How can you feel content when you have all this? We've done all this damage, when you have all this debt, when you've done all this harm to yourself, when you've lost all these friends, when you've lost these families, when you've ruined these relationships, when you've lost all this time in your life. How can you smile? But part of recovery is allowing those moments of serenity to take you over. Part of recovery is allowing you to actually stand back, take a step back and look at how far you've come. Yes, things aren't perfect. Yes, it will probably take a lifetime to undo any damage you've done, and a lot of damage you've done through addiction cannot be undone. All right? But if you feel this wave of tranquility, this wave of serenity, this smile come across your face, because actually you have spent X amount of time doing something more positive. Maybe it's because you've been paid and 3 days later you've not spent all your money gambling. Maybe it's because you just had a decent conversation with someone. Maybe you've spent a couple of hours in the pub and you've not played the fruit machine. Maybe you just feel like, actually, you know what, I've had the life of a normal person. And by normal, I mean someone who isn't suffering from this addiction. Right? That's my biggest thing now. If I can get through an X amount of period of time and I can think, you know what, I've had the life of a normal person, I will let a smile spread across my face. And rather than try and reject it, rather than fight it, rather than try and squash it with negative feelings, which I've always done historically in the past, maybe just let yourself enjoy it. Maybe let yourself enjoy that feeling as a reward for what you've done, and whatever you've done, whether that be the practical blocks and the steps and you put in place to, help combat your addiction, whether that be because you've actually made a mental decision to make improvements in your life. Whatever it is, allow that to manifest, because it won't last for long, I assure you of that. Allow that positive feeling to manifest, allow yourself to smile, all right, and then you've got a marker to come back to every day that you do your life right. Stay safe and stay sane, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.